A group of people from the modern world are suddenly summoned to a fantasy realm. They look around in panic continuously, asking each other what is happening. Seated high above them, the king explains that in recent years the soldiers of the human kingdom have been falling in battle against the demonic hordes, plunging his nation into crisis. Thus, their world is on the brink of disaster as well. Therefore, they have summoned heroes with unique powers from another world to aid them. He loudly proclaims that those present today are indeed those heroes, while the newly dubbed heroes are still trying to grasp what has just happened. Several wizards appear eager to assess their talents. The wizards informed the heroes that upon their arrival, they were endowed with various skills that those in this fantasy world do not possess. True to the wizard's words, after testing, each hero discovers they possess a unique skill. However, when it comes to the hero Noro, they are unable to detect any skill. Noro recalls that just before this he was on his way to his company living a life akin to slavery when he met the deity of craftsmanship, Hephaistos. The deity informed him that he would be summoned to this fantasy world immediately from his expertise in crafting. The deity granted Noro the skill of supreme steward. Back in the fantasy world, Norio still cannot understand what his skill entails. It seems that the inability to detect Noro's skill causes a great headache for everyone as he appears unable to fight the demonic forces. Noro seeks to speak with the king. The king responds that no matter what Noro cries out for, there is no returning to their original world unless they defeat the demon lord. Noro argues that it's impossible for someone without a skill like him. Next, Noro asks the king if he could have a piece of land instead, just a plot far from the city where he could farm and quietly live out his days until death. Norio silently resolves not to return to his previous life of servitude and to start anew in this world. Subsequently, a soldier leads Noro to a suitable piece of land. Near Noro's land, there is a stream of clear water. After tasting it with his hand, he is delighted to find that it is fresh water. Strangely, within the water, there was an octopus, which Noro managed to catch easily using a few skills in his first attempt to start a fire. Using ancient methods, Noro easily succeeded. This made him start to doubt his own abilities. To test his skills, Noro began clearing the land with just a few simple movements. The entire plot was cleared of weeds and plants. It turned out that his supreme steward skill greatly enhanced the effectiveness of any tool he used, maximizing its potential. He was confident that with this skill, pioneering would become much easier. Noro continued by sowing seeds in the soil and fishing. Luckily, on his first attempt, he caught a mermaid. The mermaid boldly declared that since she was caught by him, she would become his wife. Being caught and brought on a land was a disgrace for a mermaid, and the fate of the defeated was to serve the victor. The mermaid couldn't believe she had been caught by a human. Since she had been brought ashore, she could no longer return to live underwater. Noro complained, wasn't it just a fishing mistake? The mermaid shouted loudly, expressing her disdain for land dwellers, yet to be caught by a race she despised deeply was humiliating. She declared that her pride was shattered, and she had no face to return to the sea. The girl announced she was now Noro's wife and demanded he take responsibility for her. Noro replied that currently they had no house, and he had just arrived to farm. At this point, Noro noticed that the seeds he had recently sown had already sprouted. He thought this was also a manifestation of Hephaistos' power of creation. The mermaid approached and asked what he was planting. Noro had randomly SWN seeds, so he did not know what they would yield, but he was proud that from now on he could be self-sufficient. Upon hearing about the simple life the mermaid realized what she needed to do. Proudly, she declared that the healing magic of the merle was hers to command. Noro looked at her puzzled, asking what she was talking about. As her figure disappeared back into the water, he wondered if the mermaid really became his wife. With no assurance she would return, Noro decided to go back to other tasks. With just a word, Noro created a house for himself, all thanks to the skill bestowed by Hephaistos. The next morning, to his surprise, the mermaid girl really returned. He anxiously asked where she had been all night. The girl laughed loudly, finding it silly that a land dweller would worry about a mermaid. She pointed to a pile of equipment for concocting potions, explaining that the preparation had been somewhat challenging. The synthesis and blending of magic into various fruits could create medicines. Soon after, the mermaid produced a type of fertilizer for Noro to use on his plants. With the mermaid's crafted fertilizer, Noro's garden grew rapidly. He couldn't believe his eyes and praised the mermaid for her amazing work. Within just 2 days, all of Noro's plants were ready to harvest. He picked a tomato and couldn't stop praising how delicious it was. The mermaid girl held the tomato In her hand, unsure what to make of it, Norio thought that perhaps it really wasn't to the mermaid's taste, but a second later she loudly exclaimed how delicious it was. She asked if land dwellers always eat this while she then casually began to harvest more carrots and onions, preparing to eat them. Norito stopped her, explaining that these cannot be eaten raw. Some vegetables have properties that make them imitable unless cooked. For now, he could only use seawater for cooking. Watching the mermaid enjoy her meal, Noro felt that this life wasn't too bad. He thought about the next things he needed to do, like creating spices. He wanted to grow soybeans to make soy sauce, and he planned to plant herbs to use with meat. They would also need kitchen tools. After finishing her meal, the mermaid introduced herself as PL and asked for his name. Noro thought that having finally arrived in this fantasy world, why should he use his old name? After a moment, he chose the name Caden for himself. Thus, Caden, inadvertently summoned to the fantasy world, began a life with his mermaid wife. After a night sleeping on the floor, Caden couldn't avoid a backache. He looked to the bed next to him and saw that Pat was no longer there. Guessing she had woken up earlier, Caden wondered if Plato, now in human form, was still comfortable sleeping on a wooden floor. Caden went outside to the garden to look for Platy. Just as he heard her shouting that someone was on their field, Noro quickly ran over, and it turned out to be a scarecrow he had created. Kitten explained to her that this was his own invention, a model scarecrow. He pointed to the scarecrow's elbow, noting that it could move, and its head and arms were even equipped with wooden swords. This way, the scarecrow could scare away birds that try to damage the garden. PL asked if the scarecrow was supposed to attack the birds with a wooden sword. Caden laughed loudly, clarifying that it was just for fun. He asserted that it couldn't actually move, just placing it in the field would make the birds mistake it for a human and keep them at bay. As soon as he finished his explanation, PL pointed out that it was indeed moving. Kaidan exclaimed in shock, how could that be? Making it move was not his intention, but it must be because it was made by Kitten hands. PL puzzled asked what was special about his hands. Caden explained to her about being summoned here by the king and the fact that he was from another world. Perhaps the powers granted by the deity had activated, allowing the scarecrow to move. Caden was surprised that Planey was even aware of the concept of heroes. The human race had used magic to summon heroes from other worlds. According to Platt, normally those heroes would not choose to fight for humanity. Moreover, no hero would choose to stay in such a secluded place. Caden replied that he didn't like that, which is why he chose to live in seclusion here. PL whispered that a land dweller couldn't possibly survive alone, fundamentally because humans are too weak. An individual living alone would be killed by monsters. Caden had his own thoughts. He felt relieved because PY was here. He wondered how she felt about it. Was it okay for her to stay here? Caden took PL's hand and said if he hadn't caught her, she wouldn't have to live this hard life. Moreover, since they met, she had been unilaterally helping him. Kin wanted her not to worry. She could just return to her ocean. PL of course disagreed. She wanted to stay by his side as a supporter. On a beautiful morning, PL fashioned a battle skirt for herself out of a scarf. She happily wore it to show Caden. Caden heartbreakingly remarked that he truly did not deserve her. PL, undeterred by his comment, excitedly told him that she had found a dungeon. Seeing Caden's confused face, she began to explain. A dungeon is an underground treasure trove, a place to battle monsters, and also where a boss awaits at the lowest level of it. Eventually, PL decided to take Caden along, believing it would be easier for him to understand if he saw it firsthand. It took Caden 2 hours to reach the cave, and he asked her how she found it. Dungeons typically appear in places where mana flows concentrate. To the untrained eye, it just looks like a normal cave. PL continued to explain that the energy in this world, like its currents, accumulates in certain places, forming dungeons. Consequently, the mana inside dungeons becomes concentrated and more potent, making the monsters inside stronger. Monsters born within dungeons will eventually emerge and roam the earth or the sea floor. Hearing this, Caden worried that it sounded quite dangerous. PL replied that this was precisely why she came here. The two ventured inside the cave, which, contrary to its primitive exterior, was akin to a castle. Inside, PL had crafted many combat potions, so Caden didn't need to do much. Meanwhile, he picked up a sword he found along the way, just in case it was needed. After a while, Keenan said they had killed quite a few monsters, and it was time to leave. PL responded that there was something strange about this place, as if a boss was orchestrating everything from behind the scenes. The typical dungeon bosses are either dragons or immortal kings. Just as she finished speaking, an immortal king from the worst species truly appeared. These are great sorcerers or high monks who possessed high magic and intelligence in life. Through their Own will they transformed into undead, and the immortal king is the highest leader among the undead PY, said she. Would stay to hold it off, and wanted Sin to run ahead as a husbandkin disagreed. With leaving her behind, Kiden picked up the sword he had found along the way and struck down the immortal king to there. Surprised, the king collapsed to the ground. He accused Kiden, asking if he dared to bring the holy sword to kill him. Kiden looked at the sword in astonishment. Wasn't it just something he had picked up? Realizing something, the Kane mentioned that he too had a sword, a holy sword that could choose its own master. He accepted the fact that it had abandoned him. Without the holy sword, his existence was meaningless. He asked Kiden to use that very sword to end his life. He had only intended to deal with a rapidly increasing number of monsters. Anyway, PL realized the situation and laughed hardly, suggesting that from now on they should help each other, calling him neighbor. Keen invited the king, whom they started calling Sensei, to occasionally visit their home for some vegetable, and because he had been a skilled bishop in life, they decided to call him Sensei. Caden returned home and began working in his forge. He told PL that the day before Sunsea had given them a mana metal as a gift. Sensei was truly generous, giving them a super valuable metal. It was a rare and hard to get metal, so Caden wanted to create something he really wanted to make. Not long after, Ken happily produced a frying pan, a knife, and even chopsticks made of the metal. He wanted to demonstrate cooking a perfect dish for play. He completed a stir-fried vegetable dish, a new creation from Caden. He laughed, praising the metal for being lightweight and conducting heat well. Additionally, it was non-stick and very easy to clean cut and set. With this, he would increase their meal variety. PL happily asked if that meant they would have even more delicious dishes from now on. Caden informed her that the most important thing was still the ingredients. Both meat and vegetables would taste better with some oil added. PL excitedly suggested they go out together to hunt monsters for meat. On the way, she mentioned that as a mermaid, she hadn't had the chance to encounter mountain monsters, but she had always wanted to try their meat, having heard it was incredibly delicious. Caden thought about how the monsters of this world were used for various purposes. PL searched around, whispering that monsters usually appeared near dungeons. If monsters appeared here, it indicated there might also be a dungeon nearby. Kitten responded that he didn't think there were many dungeons in such nearby areas. At that moment, a group of wild boars appeared and attacked them. PL excitedly shouted that they were here, and it was terrible to have two dungeons nearby. She reminded her husband to strike them cleanly from one side, only as one after another the boars attacked, forcing them to kill more than they had anticipated. PL suggested they should cut the meat and freeze it to preserve it for longer. Caden felt wonderful, grateful that life was much easier with PY around. PY was eagerly anticipating a new dish from KN. When the dish was served, PL savored it delightfully. Caden still knew that if they had some breadcrumbs and eggs, it would be even better. He asked PY if people in this world ate chicken eggs. PL mentioned she had only heard that land weather ate them, not the merfolk. She looked at a bird singing on a branch and asked if they could take its eggs. If not, they would have to go up the mountain again. As they walked, Caden pondered the ongoing battle with the monsters, but they hadn't gone far when a dragon personally came to find them. It introduced itself as Vil and asked if they were the ones who had been causing havoc on its mountain and had also killed many of its subordinates. Khan, frightened, said they didn't know the mountain was owned. He apologized and promised there wouldn't be a second time. Vil, outraged that such insignificant creatures had dared to tarnish its reputation, declared that now it only had one option left: to annihilate them. Just as the dragon's flames were about to engulf them, cut and drew the holy sword to block it. Vil couldn't believe its eyes as Caden not only dispersed its fire breath, but also swept it clean away. Caden breathed a sigh of relief. The field was safe now. Caden said they had ventured up the mountain on their own, and he wanted to apologize for that. But if it attacked them so ruthlessly, he was forced to protect his valuable things. There was no other way. He would have to fight seriously. Vil looked at Caden's sword skeptically. Caden simply had to explain that it was the holy sword received from the undead king. The king had just happened to stop them. It was a misunderstanding that he hadn't explained clearly. Indeed, the undead king informed Vil that Caden was the one who would venture onto its mountain. Keen interrupted, admitting their fault and going there. The undead king, however, ignored Khan's words and continued to reproach Vil. He criticized Vil for overreacting to the routine intrusion into the dungeon, calling it petty. He questioned whether such behavior was befitting of an heir to the geyser dragon. He advised Vil to measure its strength and not harm those who are not its enemies. Vil, focusing on the holy sword, asked Kitten how he came to possess it. Vil inquired if the undead had given The sword away, the undead king explained to Vil that the holy sword chooses its own master. Vil disagreed, saying the sword was meant for the heir. The undead king argued that if that were true, he too would become its adversary. Vil decided to leave, cursing its unlucky day, but was unexpectedly tripped by Caden grabbing its tail. Vil fell to the ground, stunned, wondering since when humans could knock it down. The undead king expressed that this was why he advised against fighting. Caden offered Vil a plate of meat before it left, surprising Vil with how delicious human food could be. Caden was pleased that Vil enjoyed it, knowing it was the meat they had hunted from its mountain. After eating, Vil ordered them to make more. Py, standing behind, grumbled about how much more she had to cook. Suddenly, the dragon glowed and transformed into a little girl. Vil said she really liked their food and thought human food tasted best in human form. Everything was resolved peacefully, and the three gathered around the dining table waiting for Caden to serve the food. The undead king couldn't stop praising it, saying even the royal palace's food couldn't compare. Vil spoke up, saying it would no longer hinder their hunting. In return, it would come here to eat. However, due to its duties, it could not relinquish the sword. The little girl warned Caden to remember that the sword would one day return to her. On a beautiful morning, Caden took out his fishing rod to go fishing. It had been a long time since he had enjoyed fishing like this. Caden remembered the last time he went fishing, thinking he'd catch a big fish, only to end up with a mermaid who became his wife. Play, once a regular office worker, he was suddenly summoned here expecting a normal life, but it turned out to be more fulfilling with his mermaid wife. Then the undead king appeared, and now a dragon living nearby made his life in this new place quite lively. Caden felt that during such bustling days, moments of quiet and fishing like this were essential. While Kaidam was lost in his thoughts, another mermaid surfaced. The merman asked if he was PL's friend. Then his expression turned menacing as he told Caden to go die. Numerous other soldiers followed, attacking Kin with bows and arrows. Caden used his sword to defend himself, accidentally creating a whirlpool that injured the merman below. PL, hearing the commotion, rushed over and asked what was happening. She recognized that the attackers in the water were led by her brother. The battle paused as Platy introduced Caden to her brother Arawana, the eldest son of Neris, the current king of the Moke. Caden was taken aback, staring at the mural prince overlooking Caden's astonishment. PL told her brother that Caden was her husband. Arawana, shocked, exclaimed, "What?" PL explained that her brother came to take her back, but she wouldn't return. She asked her brother to relay this to their parents. Atina, dismissing his sister's words, insisted Caden was a kidnapper and ordered the soldiers to continue fighting. PL turned to Kin and said he might as well fight back. Caden, frightened, exclaimed, "How could he? That was his wife's family from afar." Vil flew in, asking what was causing such a commotion. The merfolk soldiers, seeing the dragon, all fled. Vil asked Caden if he was all right, to which Caden laughed and said the girl had just saved him. Vil, with a matter-of-fact expression, remarked that if Caden disappeared, who would cook delicious food for it. Vil turned and noticed Arawana hadn't left yet and shouted that there was still one left. The little girl yelled, "Hey, shrimp, you stand before a dragon and don't run. Do you want to evaporate?" Kid pointed out Vil to PL's brother. Approaching the water's edge, he asked if Arawana could join them for a meal. Since they didn't understand each other well, it would be good to talk first. Arawana's stayful of humans said he had nothing to discuss with a human. Platt Andy told him to leave if he had nothing to say, but ultimately, out of love for his sister, Arawana agreed to leave the water and follow them home. At the sight of the shabby house, he questioned what it was. Angrily, he said, "How can my sister, a princess, live in such a rundown place?" PL calmly invited him inside to look. A large house appeared before them, a storage for the meat from the forest and vegetables from the field. Beside it was a smaller house used for fermenting spices. PL boasted of having a magical recipe room inside the storehouse. Kitten brought out the food and invited them to sit down and taste it. After eating, all three looked eagerly for more, but there was none left. Arawana also realized his mistake in underestimating Kevin. He now understood why his sister had fallen for him. Arawana expressed his hope that Caden could protect his sister in the long run. Caden clasped his hands and bowed his head, asking if it was really okay. Today, he had learned that Platy was a princess of the merfolk. With such a high-status, marriage wasn't to be taken lightly. He was sure others would think the same. PL loudly declared that their marriage only needed their consent. Bill spoke up, suggesting Arawana didn't fully understand his sister. In the war between humans and demons, the merfolk remained neutral, thus potentially leading to a political marriage. Arawana admitted that was true. The merfolk were being forced to choose a side. Not choosing would make them adversaries of both sides. so there was a lot of internal debate, Arowana near tears. Admitted he thought his sister believed that without her the my folk would be safer once again, as her brother he asked. Kind to take good care of her, Vil approached, asking if the three were planning to marry. She laughed loudly and said, then marry me too. Vil thought that since she would eventually get the holy sword from Caden anyway when they marry, the property would become communal. She laughed heartily, saying that a human's lifespan is just a blink of an eye to her, so she might as well marry him and enjoy delicious meals every day. Caden shouted that he was already with play, and even if he were the strongest, he would only marry once. Unable to persuade him, Vil resorted to crying loudly, asking why he wouldn't marry her. Caden, feeling helpless, told her to stop crying. The two of them escorted Arowana back to the sea. Platt said her royal brother would speak to their father and mother once permission was granted. They would officially marry. PL asked Kian if he was really okay with this to avoid the complications of her folk society. She had left home, but she admitted that this place was wonderful. Kian calmly reassured her that even though he knew everything about her, his life hadn't changed. He continued explaining that he was endowed with the power of the supreme steward by the gods. However, since he lacked combat abilities, he had come here to live, believing they would definitely have a happy life. Caden farm was growing, and he needed more labor now. He had to farm, harvest, and manage everything, and the fermentation factory kept him extremely busy as the main provider for the family. Kidan thought he needed to create a separate home. Just then the undead king overheard their conversation and offered to lend them monsters from the dungeon. These monsters couldn't talk, so they wouldn't cost much in wages. Moreover, they gathered mana from the air, so they didn't need to eat. Caden thanked the undead king for helping solve a major problem initially. Apprehensive about employing monsters, Caden found they were more skilled than he thought. Orcs, with their large bodies, handled the heavy labor, while the smaller goblins with their nimble fingers excelled at intricate tasks. Although there were some failures in minor tasks, with careful instruction, they learned quickly and kept improving. PL joyfully watched the monsters, feeling very happy. Kitten reminded her not to get too attached since they were just monsters. PL, of course, understood. She explained to Kitten that the demon tribe used large numbers of such monsters to attack humans. They summoned armies from dungeons with the premise of exterminating the opposition. If the monsters were killed, they would just replenish their ranks from the dungeons. While they were discussing this, Caden noticed a monster that had fallen hard to the ground. Worried, forgetting it was a monster, he ran over to check if it was all right. The monster looked at Caden for a moment before responding that it was fine. Both Kitten and PL were surprised and couldn't believe it could speak. The monster continued saying it wanted to do more for its master. PL guessed that these creatures had developed a sense of self, possibly due to Caden's powers. Caden found this intriguing, but also a bit arbitrary. He embraced all monsters, thanking the heavens profusely. PL felt so happy that they couldn't abandon any of them now. With everyone's help, the large house was quickly completed. Vil was the first to explore inside the new house. Caden and PL stood outside, wondering if the dragon could stay still. Caden then planned to build a large house nearby to accommodate all monsters. Currently, he still needed manpower to help. He asked the monsters if they could lend a hand, thus their pioneering life officially began. Arowana returned as promised earlier, overwhelmed by the grandeur of their home. Today, he came to talk about PL's marriage. Arowana had discussed it with their father. Initially, the king was apprehensive, but after hearing about Caden's character and strength, he agreed, especially Caden being independent of any power was excellent. Caden then worried about the demon and human tribes when the political marriage didn't go through. Arowana assured him that they were indeed very upset. However, the king had announced that his daughter would marry only a saint temporarily. They would be displeased about not winning. Play. Arowana promised he would do his utmost not to cause trouble for them. Thus, he hoped Caden would take good care of Play. Caden told him he felt very happy living the Play and had to thank him for that. Caden reflected on how if he hadn't found Plyy, he would have been destined to live a lonely life. In this place, as they were talking, a panic monster rushed in to report that they were under attack from the seaside. Many wild beasts, part of the demon tribe, had come ashore, and currently the orcs and goblins were fighting them. Arowana, alarmed, wondered if the demon tribe had discovered their location, cursing under his breath about the supposed secrecy of their kingdom. Kigan ran out to find that it was indeed a demon tribe ship, but their commander had been captured by the monsters. When she saw them approaching, she screamed out that she was Astaroth, one of the 4 demon lords. The orcs explained that she came to kill their master, so they captured her. Kidin, pointing to a small mountain of bones, asked what it was. The orc calmly explained that those were the troops commanded by the demon tribe, reporting That about 100 of them had been defeated. Caden shouted in disbelief, questioning how nearly 100 were defeated by just 9 of them. He acknowledged their strength, but cautioned against recklessness, saying he'd be devastated if anything happened to them. Rowan approached Astaroth, asking how she knew of this place. She retorted, questioning if he was really a mirthful prince, and mockingly advised him not to underestimate the demon tribe's network. She revealed her mission was to retrieve the mermaid princess and eliminate the Sint who stole the bride or sword. Pointing at Caden as she guessed he was the Saint, Arowana informed him that she was a belligerent subordinate of the demon king, feared even by her allies. The undead king, drawn by the noise, came to see what was happening. Aroa loudly proclaimed that she was one of the world's great calamities. Astro, puzzled by the situation, wondered what was really going on. Vil also arrived just in time from a nearby forest, and Astro looked terrified at the scene. Caden approached her with a proposition. If she promised from men on not to see him as an enemy, they would let her go. Astro refused, warning him not to underestimate one of the 4 demon lords. When Caden accepted her challenge and drew the holy sword, Astro fainted from fear. A few days later, Astaroth returned to confront Caden again. PL stepped up, asking if she was back for more. Vil, not one for patience, directly asked Astaroth what she wanted. With Caden accompanying Astaroth were 2 girls who pleaded for everyone to listen to their explanation. They were currently being hunted by the Demon King. Astro whispered that it was only her the Demon King was after her, and told the 2 to leave. Vil shouted, overwhelmed by the noise, threatening to burn them all. Right then, Hedden reminded her those weren't food. He turned to Asav and asked if she had really been expelled from the Demon King's army. Astro replied that her mission to bring back the mermaid princess had failed, and the monsters she brought were all destroyed. Moreover, involving the dragon had only added chaos to the battle. Vil turned away, saying she only brought her to the demon tribe's location as a result. As Ro was stripped of her title as one of the 4 demon lords and expelled from the tribe, the girl beside Astaroth shouted that this was extremely strange. The military tribunal was clearly without the Demon King, yet a sudden decision was made, as if they were all out to force Astaroth into a corner. The other girl affirmed that this had something to do with Lillian. Astaroth told them to leave, as the Demon King's army only accepts the truly powerful. She admitted her mission failure was due to her own weakness. Vil, losing patience, asked what exactly was going on. PL thought for a moment and asked if they weren't supposed to be held accountable. Astaroth declared that from today she would start her life anew. The orcs and goblins she first met here were exceptionally strong and even had their own thoughts. Moreover, it was miraculous that 2 of the world's great calamities were serving Caden. Astaroth knelt down, asking them to take her in for a while. Caden agreed without hesitation. He advised her to forget the past and look towards a future where she could be a better version of herself. Vil disagreed, questioning what if they became stronger, and then decided to kill Caden. Caden set a condition that while the 3 stayed, they were not to cause any trouble or hurt anyone. He also assigned them tasks immediately. Their first jobs were to dig the soil, plant trees, and hunt monsters. However, all the tasks assigned ended in failure. Caden comforted them, assuring them that it wasn't useless at all. He added that it wasn't her strength or power that made him accept her. It's simply because you have a certain power called charm. Caden explained, so you need to have confidence, and someday you will find a better version of yourself. After finishing his pep talk, Caden moved to the dining table and called everyone to join for dinner. That day, he had prepared new dishes: grilled wild pork and pork soup. Caden encouraged everyone to eat up, saying they would need their strength to continue their efforts the next day. The next morning, Astro Brute woke up early and started working, but they noticed that Caden and PL were nowhere to be found. One of the girls mentioned that they had something to attend to at the sea. They had already completed the vegetable harvesting tasks assigned by Kitten and were preparing to continue weeding and cleaning the house. Vil, lying in front of the house, incessantly urged the 3 to keep working, threatening that if they didn't work, they would die. As asked Vil what she was doing, Vil, ignoring the rebuke, responded that her current job was to guard the house. After returning from the CPL, resumed her mermaid form. Ka asked if she felt more comfortable in the water compared to living on land. PL laughed hardly, saying it was the same everywhere. The transformation pills that Caden had created were so effective that she enjoyed life on land just as much. Caden secretly smiled, appreciating his thoughtful wife. After a moment, PL informed Kitten that sea monsters often appeared in this area. She explained that just as there are dungeons on land and mountains, there are also underwater dungeons alongside useful sea creatures. There were also harmful ones. Caden was about to ask what would happen if a dangerous sea monster appeared now, but PL, as if reading his mind, said she once encountered a level 5 monster. However, if it met her husband now, it would surely be defeated. Then PL took out a human-compatible underwater breathing pill. All Tsun had to do was chew it, and he would be able to breathe underwater. PL reminded him that since it wasn't fully developed, it wouldn't work if he didn't chew it. Caden was amazed that after chewing the pill, he could breathe underwater. Watching PL swim beside him, he realized he had forgotten that Platt was also a beautiful mermaid princess. PL pointed towards a dark area that were approaching inside minerals and salts mixed together, emitting an extremely intense, murderous aura in the darkness. Ly Eel appeared together. Kig and PL easily defeated the small creature. Before leaving the sea to return to land, Caden didn't forget to bring some seaweed. As soon as they reached the shore, he began preparing a dish of eel with seaweed for the two of them. Meanwhile, at the Demon King's castle, since Astro, one of the 4 demon lords, had been dismissed, they began searching for someone to fill her position. The Demon King angrily asked who had agreed to this dismissal. Leland responded that, as he had reported, Astaroth had committed a serious error. Zedon, in rage, shouted, asking if he thought he was unaware. How could such a disloyal person as him have set such a trap? Leland, terrified, knelt on the ground, begging for forgiveness. The Demon King declared that before he returned, he had adjusted his close associates, and now they should also bear responsibility. Even a demon king like Zahn sometimes felt threatened by the Saint. Caden Momoko is an ordinary high school student, much like anyone else. After being summoned to another world, the gods bestowed upon her the skill of the Grim Reaper scythe. She is tasked with battling against the demonic lord in this world. Life here feels brutally harsh to Momoko. There's no electricity, no smartphones, food and clothing are scarce. The main diet is bread. Beds are lion-fest, and the clothes are so coarse they shake the skin. Thus, most otherworldly visitors cannot endure and perish. Momoko recalls being summoned with more than 10 others. She is unsure how many of them are still alive. Among them was a young man without any skills. She worries whether he is still alive or dead. She thinks he couldn't possibly survive in this harsh world. However, Moko is different. She possesses high-level combat skills. The king of this land values her greatly. In such a harsh world, she recognizes her fortune. Thus, Moko continues to fight relentlessly. She believes that with her current skills, she is the strongest in the most recent battle. Although the enemy wasn't very strong, their numbers seemed endless. She couldn't possibly kill them all, which is the cruel reality of war. Just then, a large dragon appeared in the sky and descended slowly. Everyone watched in fear. One of the 2 calamities of this world. Momoko wondered why it showed up on the battlefield. A warrior she knew could not possibly kill such a monster. The great dragon declared it came to warn the lower beings not to disturb its home anymore. Then it reluctantly released Astro from its grip. Although it had wanted to finish him off, it had a duty to return the person. Vil, the dragon, warned that from now on it did not want any lowly creature to disrespect its mate. Caden Vil declared that the judgment named after the holy kitten would descend upon them. Remember that name deep within your minds. An enemy of the Saint Ken is also an enemy of Vil. Everyone was bewildered, unsure who could command such a massive dragon. Back at Caden home, starting a new day, he resolved to work harder than ever. That morning, Caden received an unfamiliar guest. As soon as the man appeared, he asked if Kitten was the saint once confirmed. He introduced himself as Demon Lord Zahn. At that moment, Asav joyously returned from the forest, proclaiming that the 3 of them had succeeded. 2 girls accompanying Asav helped bring back the creature they had captured. Upon seeing Demon Lord Ziggin present, Astral was shocked into stillness. Excitedly, Ziggin exclaimed, "So you are here thanks to the signals left by her subordinates. He had been able to find this place." Astro regained her composure and confessed that she had failed her mission and was expelled from her position as one of the 4 heavenly kings. She admitted that she no longer deserved to serve the demon. Lord Asav yelled warning that if he continued to pursue her, the others would revolt. Zahn loudly replied, disregarding them, stating that she was the one he needed the most. Vil asked them to wait a moment, sensing that something was approaching. Vil inquired what exactly had happened. Demon Lord Ziggin apologized for causing a commotion. Caden, concerned, asked if it was all right for someone of the Demon Lord's stature to leave his country. Zahn assured him it was fine, explaining that the greatest duty of a Demon Lord is to protect the land from human invasions. He had fulfilled the mission usted to him by previous Demon Lords, having many fight alongside him on the battlefield. among whom Asav was his most supportive ally. Curious, Caden asked why Astro had then been expelled. Zahn angrily explained that Astro had been taken to a tribunal and sentenced to expulsion while he was still on the battlefield. He was unaware of these events as the judges made their decision based on their interests. The Demon Lord added that the front had temporarily ceased fighting due to the chaos caused by a sudden dragon appearance on the battlefield. This break had given him time to investigate the matter. Zahn realized there had been foul play in Astro's expulsion. Grasping Aso's hand, he expressed his relief at finding her here. He had been worried they might never meet again. Astro tearfully vowed to dedicate her life to the Demon Lord. Astro pleaded with the Demon Lord to let her stay by his side, whether it was on the fierce battlefield or into the realm of death. PL stood up, apologizing for interrupting them. She revealed to Zahn that she was the mermaid princess who had been forced to marry him. Zigan, shocked, exclaimed, "What is this about?" He had never heard of this before. Kitten informed him that the demon and human races were intending to invade the mermaid race, yet he, the Demon Lord, was unaware of it. Adding to this was Acero's unexplained expulsion. PL suspected that someone in the Demon Kingdom was targeting both of them. Zigan decided that before letting Astro return, he must deal with that person. PL, with a smile, suggested a clever idea. "Why don't the two of you get married right now, right here?" She explained that Asav becoming the queen of the Demon Lord would be a blow to those plotting her downfall. If someone was aiming to match the Demon Lord's power, they would want their daughter to be the king's consort. But if Astaroth married the Demon Lord, it would ruin their plans. All they needed to marry was to speak the vows before God, a promise before the divine. PL continued, explaining that it meant standing before the Lord and proclaiming those vows. She called for the King of Immortality to attend. Zigan, horrified, realized the rumors that St. Kitten was harboring two of the world's great calamities were true. PL said their marriage would have the king's witness. She proudly informed them that he had once been a great priest in the church during his lifetime. She wanted God to see their vows through his eyes. PL curiously asked, "What will you do now, Sensei?" He replied that he was already undead, though he had once served the human race. However, each race worships a different deity. Humans worship the Lord, merfolk worship Poseidon, and demons worship the hell gods. Each race has its own faith in their deity. Caden smirked, thinking their current act was like calling a priest into a church. PL, holding her head, screamed, "What should I do now?" The king said that having lived for thousands of years, he had come to understand many things and thus would grant them his blessing. Everyone was terrified when the king's prayers summoned Hayes, the god of the underworld. Hayes inquired who had called him here, noting it had been a long time since anyone had managed to do so. He continued, asking why they had summoned him. "Have you started a war?" As the Lord Zigan assured him not to worry about that, Zahn simply wished to ask for his permission to marry a woman. Hayes questioned if he could love her for the rest of his life. Zigan responded that it was exactly what he, a Demon Lord, desired. The woman who would spend the rest of her life with him would be no other than Astro. Hades agreed, bestowing his blessing upon them both. After Hades left, Zahn was still jubilant, seeing as proof he could boast about to others. The immortal king added that it seemed anyone seeking to disrupt their marriage would face divine retribution. Zigan was unsure how to thank everyone present. With their help, he had been able to marry Asav as he had hoped. Asav, with tears in her eyes, added that she would never forget their kindness. Zig was eager to return home to announce that Astaroth was now the queen, but she wanted to wait a little longer. Vil shouted, urging them to go home already. "You're married now. Why not return to your kingdom?" Kiden calmly asked if there was a problem. Z urged Astro to explain her intentions. Astro replied that she had been banished from there under the tutelage of the saint. She had learned much during this time, therefore she wanted to stay a bit longer to prove herself worthy of being the Demon Lord's wife. Zigan guessed she had her reasons and then turned to Kiden, asking if his wife could stay a bit longer. Caden replied he didn't mind, but wasn't sure how much help he could offer. He also felt quite guilty about separating the newlyweds. After a moment of thought, the Demon Lord asked if Caden would mind him staying as well. Caden asked if Zahn staying here would affect his people. Zigan replied that it would be fine for a short period as long as Caden didn't mind. Vil shouted, questioning if Caden really was okay with it. Normally, this would be when enemies execute their plans. She reminded him that neglecting this could eventually expose vulnerabilities. What if someone found out the Demon Lord was here and decided to act? Hearing this, Zahn assured her that he had considered this scenario already. He had sensed something was amiss right from the start. Thus Zig had come here using teleportation, thanks to coordinates left by Astro's servant. PL worried whether other demons capable of teleporting might also come Here Zig replied that the coordinates had been encrypted, making this place impenetrable unless the one who encrypted them allow entry. Moreover, this area was shielded against reconnaissance. Demon Jin had tried using teleportation or scrying spells on this area, but a spell prevented outside ERS from teleporting in and enveloped the place again. Kennen wondered who had set up the barrier. The immortal king, as if foreseeing his question, stated only dragons could do such a thing. Vil laughed loudly, confirming that was true. After bringing that demon back, she casually set up a magical barrier. Vil was angry because their sudden arrival had reduced her food ration. Asso's two maid servants rejoiced, realizing they weren't as disliked by Vil as they thought. Cut and patted Vil's head, thanking her for her foresight. Today Cin decided to organize a feast to celebrate the Demon Lord's wedding and to acknowledge Vil's efforts. The immortal king asked if he could join. Kitten laughed and said of course. Both the Demon Lord and his wife thanked the saint for his kindness. Because of this meal, Astaroth had asked Caden to guide her on becoming a proper wife. PL loudly questioned why Astaroth would ask another's husband such a thing. It was only because, aside from her fierce nature, PL couldn't do much else. Can laugh, praising Plady for helping his garden grow faster and yield tastier produce. As the wife of the Demon Lord, Astro was adamant about learning. Kitten thought to himself that she truly was sincere. It was then the Demon Lord's turn to ask the saint for permission to train here. He found this place fascinating, not just the cuisine, but also the flora and the structures. He understood why Astaroth wanted to stay and learn. Everything was simply wonderful. Zahn expressed his desire to support Asav as her husband. He believed that a couple should support each other, just like the saint currently does. PL was very pleased with this, thinking the Demon Lord was really different from those who linger long in castles. The next day, everyone resumed their assigned tasks. The Demon Lord himself even built a house with the help of the orcs. By midday, Asav brought food to call everyone to eat. Seeing everyone enjoying the meal, Khan told them it was Astaroth who had cooked it. Surprisingly, a warrior could master cooking so quickly that the maid noticed the Demon Lord's outfit for the day. Zahn shyly explained that Caden had made it for him. Caden laughed, explaining that since they were both men, it was easy for him to make an outfit for the Demon Lord, although he had promised to make an outfit for PL first. He had yet to figure out how to do, so Caden left the dining table and brought over 3 bundles of fabric, all that he had. The maid, seeing the beautiful fabric, came over to feel it. She said she had never seen such fine material. Caden explained that while exploring a dungeon, he found some caterpillars spinning silk, so he brought it back for experimentation, creating the fabric from these caterpillars. The maid asked if she could make an outfit for PL. Her parents used to run a tailor shop, so she knew about these things. In just one afternoon, the maid crafted a beautiful dress for Play. Excited danced around, but Vil suddenly breathed fire on it. Play angered asked the stupid dragon what it was doing. Vil told them to be quiet and watch, as the fabric was not affected by her fire. As Vil suspected the fabric had magical resistance properties, Vil noted that the fabric had excellent defensive capabilities comparable to iron armor. Caden thought he had just been taking good care of the caterpillars, hoping to create beautiful clothes for Platt, but turned out to have additional benefits. Perhaps the seeds were continuing to enhance the caterpillars. Vil's eyes sparkled, foreseeing the birth of legendary armor. Ziggin, standing next to Astro, whispered that every day brought a new surprise in the human kingdom. They were greatly troubled by the dragon's appearance. Based on the situation at the front lines, they still couldn't determine why the dragon had appeared, so the human military chose an action. The king furiously scolded them as useless, but war between humans and demons had been ongoing for centuries. He thought, as the 18th king, he should end this war. To do so, he had summoned heroes from a parallel world, thus birthing the ambition to defeat the demon race. The king's close aide asked if he thought the true master of the dragon had existed from the start. Honestly, everyone currently thought so, but they couldn't make a mistake, as it would be tantamount to provoking it, and if the dragon appeared again, destruction would be inevitable. The king suddenly shouted about destruction. That was it. He ordered everyone to quickly find that saint and bring him here. He was ambitious to have Caden as a citizen, confident that with him they would surely win the battle. The royal Abe reported that a battle was currently ongoing in the demon kingdom. The king shouted that he didn't care. From this moment, the army would be temporarily disbanded, focusing resources to find the saint at all costs. At Cade's house, Sin was having tea with Astaroth and whispered that they had been here for 2 months. According to Astro, they should also leave. Ziggin wanted to regain the feeling of swordsmanship, and unexpectedly, discovered a very special sort of kitten. Taking it outside, PL explained to them that it was the holy sword they had. Found in the dungeon of the immortal king, Kin added that although they had returned it to Sensei, the sword kept following them. According to a legend, Zigu, a person bestowed with the power of a saint by the Lord, is even stronger than a hero. He asked Kadin if it was him. Kevin, with nothing to hide, shared the story of being summoned by the king and moving to this place. After hearing everything, Zahn expressed his concern that if Caden hadn't been here, the situation would have been much worse and the merfolk would have been dragged into the conflict. The demon lord had to admit that Caden's presence was truly a great thing for this world. However, the time had come for farewell. Ziggin needed to return to deal with those who were too happy with his absence. Caden complimented him, noting the demon lord's thorough planning. However, the two maid servants Belina and Bait Me decided to stay at Caden house. On the way back, Zahn confessed he had never thought the conflict between the demon Cain and humans could be resolved so smoothly, but with the appearance of the saint, he realized that what he had given up was not just a dream. Finally, Kitten managed to make the bread just as he had wanted. PL, looking at the round loaf in her hands, wondered if this was really bread. Kin confirmed that it was one of the staple foods from his world and mentioned that flour could also be used to make other types of bread. But first, he wanted to grow something called Riceville. Hearing about new food brightened up and eagerly asked if it was delicious. Caden closed his eyes and began to describe it as sticky white and slightly sweet. PL suggested some adjustments. Currently, the Oridesi group was busy building, while the Goblin group handled the fields. Bolina and Bitme each had their tasks. PL turned her gaze to the dragon next to her. Vil spoke up, saying she had protected this land from invaders and also helped create channels for irrigation. In summary, everyone was busy with their assigned tasks. If they still needed people to gather food, many more would be required. PL loudly declared that she was the only one responsible for medicine and fermenting food. She also had to prepare fertilizing the fields, making soy sauce at the factory, and even cooling the cold storage. She couldn't handle everything on her own. Cadden, after hearing the complaints, knelt on the ground and apologized to his wife for not paying attention. Despite his intentions to do many things, he had overlooked what she had to handle at that moment. Arowana arrived, asking why everyone was being so loud. Kigan admitted he had failed in his role as a husband. PL looked at her brother and asked why he was here. Arowana happily explained that after discussing with Caden, he had agreed to sell him the pickled vegetables. PL angrily shouted that her brother was the one who had ordered such a large quantity. It was also a favorite dish of that undead creature. She questioned why everyone liked fermented food so much. Atana, recalling the taste, said it was because it was delicious and full of life. PL whispered that the fields were seriously understaffed. To solve the labor issue, Arowana had brought some of his own people to help his sister. These included Puffer, a witch of the piercing cold, Lampy, a held demon, and Gara, a plague sorceress. Everyone was delighted to see the princess again. Lampy even ran forward, wanting to hug the princess, but ended up kneeling before her. She said just thinking of meeting the princess again made her feel blessed from the bottom of her heart. PL asked if they could keep quiet now. Vil looked at the three, hardly believing they were all criminals. Arowana confirmed they were notorious criminals from his country. Regarding Lampy, he can only describe her as scum to the royal family. G looked at the prince, asking what they would be doing here. Lampy, excitedly calling out PL's name, declared she would stay by the princess's side until her last breath and was overjoyed to help the princess eradicate this humanity. Caden quietly asked his brother-in-law what crimes the three had committed. Arowana explained that in his country there were 6 witches well versed in pharmacology and cruelty. Today, he had brought 3 of them. For instance, Puffer focused on the circulation of energy in the ocean, aiming to develop an artifact to control it. If she could manage this energy, she would be able to submerge the world in ice. With this power, she wanted to destroy both the demon and human races. So she was captured. Next, the tight Gerald was a truly frightening person. Gur was assigned the highest position within the Human Medical Alliance for her expertise in pharmacology. However, she continuously propagated a bizarre theory that all diseases were caused by microorganisms. Lambi proved to be even more troublesome. She had once been a guard for the Merfolk royal family when a nobleman insulted Princess P. Lampy beat him mercilessly. Arowana apologized that none of the people he brought were ordinary. Keen, without any judgment, turned to ask his wife PL how she felt about it. PL please asked if he was worried about her. Everything will be fine, she said. PL was annoyed when her brother interrupted her. He mentioned something Caden didn't know. PL, his sister, was also one of the wicked witches compared To the other witches, PL was even more dangerous concerning her drug inventions and scandals, and as a royal, whatever she did was pardon, making PL even more ruthless. Caden tried to imagine what his wife as a witch would look like then. He said he trusted her, and no one could control these witches except Herville. Overhearing the arrogant remarks from the three witches, angrily transformed into a dragon form and began to admonish them to behave properly. Subsequently, they also met the person known as the Immortal King, going from one shot to another. All three fainted afterward. The next morning, they woke up momentarily unsure of where they were. Puffer complimented what a magical home it was. From the aromatic air to the soft cushions, Lampy recalled that the Prin and brought the here to do something. Bolina came to check on them and called them outside. When Lampy realized Bolina was of the demon race, she immediately apologized to the princess. It was her fault for letting the princess become the wife of a demon. PL, confused, asked what Lampy was talking about. This place was not of the demon race, and her husband was a human. Lampy then started calling Kitten a fool, VO never to forgive the despicable humans. PL scolded her, asking how she could say such things about someone else. As husband Gar continued to ask if the owner of this land was human, so it was not a domain of demons. PL explained to them that this was just a separate area that Caden had reclaimed. The three continued to think poorly of reclaimed land. Lampy worried about what would happen if there was a dispute between the demon and human races. Vil spoke up, saying she would simply burn them. Remembering that Vil was a drive-in, they again brought up the undead. Kane mentioning him made him appear, giving them another scare. Belina said both she and he had been protecting everyone in this land. Lampy worriedly asked if they were not planning to claim this place as their territory. Right, PL confirmed that. Moreover, from today, the three should work hard to produce food. All three were shocked, asking if they were called here to do things like cooking. Lampy was nearly in tears when she learned how long PL had been working like a slave. PL had nothing left to explain to these three fools. She decided to take them on a tour before dinner. During the tour, PL let them taste the spices she had made. She also told them about Cadden, a man who had received strength from the Lord A. While later Vil came to ask if they had finished talking, she was really starving. When everyone returned, Caden had already prepared pizza. Lambi asked if this was a dish from a parallel world. Everyone greatly enjoyed the flavor of the food. Lampy watched the princess, not understanding what drew PL to Kidden, but seeing that she was very happy now. When they went to bed, all three couldn't help but praise the delicious food. They thought this place must truly be paradise. All three began their assigned tasks in Cadden's fields while sleeping. Cadden told his wife that having those three was really helpful. They indeed assisted a lot thanks to everyone's help. They had finished preparing the rice field. Kian laughed, saying all that was left was to sell the seeds. The three were given the task of planting seeds, so they were already in the rice field early. Lampy shouted in surprise, asking if they had to plant the entire large field. She requested a break, otherwise she would give her clothes dirty. The ones Batum had carefully made. Bait me waved off Lampy's concern, telling her not to worry, as the clothes she provided them were meant for this kind of work. At that moment, Puffer became interested in the idea that rice could be fermented to produce alcohol, speculating that it would taste delicious. Gara boldly declared that she would not let the princess wade through the mud, whether it was a sea of flames or a swamp. She was willing to do it in place of the princess. PL asserted that everyone would have to work. Vil realized that she too must participate. Kidden instructed everyone to first take about 3 or 4 seedlings and then plant them in rows. The three witch girls excitedly went down to the fields and declared the start of a rice planting competition. However, the task proved harder than they thought. They quickly ran out of breath and had to stop. Vil watched them and secretly laughed at their misery. At this point, only Vil and PL were tirelessly working on the field, even in human form. Vil still possessed the strength of a dragon. As for PL, having strong legs was an advantage of the Moke, making the task surprisingly easy for them. Vil taunted PL, asking if she wanted to see who could plant faster. PL responded that even though she wasn't a dragon, she didn't want to lose to someone who usually just ate and slept. Thanks to their competition, the rice planting was completed in one day. With Cadden's care, the rice plants grew in just a month. After harvesting, Kidden cooked some rice and presented it to them. Even Lampy felt proud of their effort as she looked at the bowl of rice in Kidden's hands. PL approached Kidden and asked why rice was so special to him. Was it just because it was a staple food from Kidden World? Caden looked up at the sky and smiled softly, saying it was also because he wanted to express his gratitude to the person who had given him these powers. Caden also wanted to thank PY, who had always helped him, he continued by placing 2 handfuls of rice onto a plate, stating that having a world where he could live like this was also thanks to the abilities bestowed upon him by that person. After trying the rice, PL commented that it was no ordinary dish. Initially, she didn't understand why it tasted so good despite lacking any distinct flavor, but when eaten with another dish, it was unbelievably delicious. Caden laughed heartily when he saw everyone enjoying the rice. He wanted to find a few more ingredients to combine them together. Vil asked if adding more ingredients would make the rice taste better, so she would go back to her dungeon to increase its difficulty. Kin, puzzled, asked how that related to the rice. PL explained that if the dungeon's difficulty increased, new monsters might appear. Vil laughed loudly, confirming that, and said it would provide Caden with even more ingredients. Caden was unaware that dungeons could function that way. PL continued, explaining that only the dragon and the undead king could manipulate such a thing. A dungeon often changes shape due to a certain energy, and only 2 such calamitous beings could affect it. Puffer quietly lamented that everyone here was so powerful. It all seemed quite cruel. It took Vil only a short time to complete the modifications to her dungeon. PL was annoyed that everyone just went there to explore, yet that dragon acted like she was the boss because the Saint Khan was with them. Everyone felt very secure. Suddenly, a large number of wild boars appeared, startling and scaring everyone. The undead king arrived just in time to defeat them in a blink of an eye. He found it amusing and wanted to lend a hand. Vil amberly scolded the undead not to turn her dungeon into a nursery and promptly took him away. Kidin silently thanked the immoral king, grateful for being saved. Facing such a large number indeed would have been challenging for them. The group continued onward as Vil indicated where new monsters had appeared. Lampui reminded the princess that she could feel very powerful monsters nearby. Everyone's attention turned to something shooting out of the grass. Lampy told the princess to leave it to her, promising to handle it at all costs before Kidden could draw his sword. Lampy had already thrown explosives at the monsters. Caden quietly noted that was why she was called a hell witch. However, the attack seemed to have no effect on them. Vil informed them that the creatures were called Lotus, a type of terrestrial turtle-like monster known for the hardness of their shells. Lampy thought that flipping them over would be enough, but unexpectedly, when she approached, she was caught by its tentacles. Vil laughed loudly, asking if she had underestimated it because she thought it was just a stone turtle, and Ortei, seeing Lampy in danger, swung his hammer at the turtle shell, but it didn't leave a scratch. Caden then used his sword to strike at its head and tentacles. PL approached and observed that the tentacles seemed to be their weak point. Vil commended them for defeating the weakest level monster, mentioning that stronger ones awaited. The Oritseat leader suggested to cut and could use the turtle shells as shields for the Oritseat and goblin warriors. Vil urged everyone not to waste more time. PL laughed, saying, "Who cares about a silly dragon? They were here to explore these things after all." Lampy expressed her concern, reminding them that it would be very dangerous for the princess from now on. PL replied indifferently, stating that her husband was the strongest man in the world. Lambai admitted she was genuinely surprised. She had never thought that a saint could surpass the power of the undead king and the dragon. However, there was still something Lampy didn't understand. She wondered why the king of the humans had banished Kaidan despite his great power. Kid explained that it was because he lacked any combat skills. It was the Lord who had bestowed upon him the ability to maximize the power of any object he touched. Caden gestured towards the holy sword, which had also gained considerable power from him. Lampy thought the princess had found a wonderful husband. Even if humans or demons intended to invade, Caden would still protect everyone. The group continued deeper into the landscape, which didn't change much, but the surroundings seemed to be heating up. Vil reappeared, asking how they were doing. The next challenge would be a hellish environment. The monsters there would always be in prime condition to attack anyone who appeared. A pack of wolves from afar was slowly advancing towards Caden's location. Everyone was astonished, questioning why they were targeting the saint. The wolves were quickly subdued. The voice of the undead king conveyed that these wolves had sensed the power of the saint. Everyone continued to leave the hellish region, but the wolves persisted in following them. The undead king guessed that they now saw Kidden as their pack leader. The wolf pack continued with Caden to the end of the dungeon, where snow fell continuously. There a large bear awaited them. Lampy assessed that it seemed quite different from the monsters they had previously fought. The undead king informed Kidden that he couldn't escape it. It had sensed the saint's power and was a warrior born only to fight. Before Caden could prepare, the wolves rushed forward and defeated the large bear. Couldn't stop everyone's attempt to assist. He asked if anyone had brought ointment because if they left it like this it would die, while Kidam was applying ointment to the bare Vil. Appeared she wondered what kind of mad game this was. If it had come to this, she would use her own neutralized power to fight with them unexpectedly. To repay Caden, the bear powerfully defeated the neutralized version, and then quietly left. Returning from the dungeon, Vil was quite upset because her new dungeon wasn't very exciting. Sin, understanding, brought out an egg he had found on the way down the mountain and presented it to Vil. He cheerfully said that thanks to her modifications he had been able to cook a dish he had wanted to make for a long time. Meanwhile, everyone enjoyed the meal, unaware that outside the village a band of robbers was surrounding them. From their perspective, this was a mysterious village looking at the rows of well-tended tomato. They didn't know what they were. They had never seen such a thing even in the residences of the human or demon races. Though they had lived in the forest for a long time, they had never seen this fruit. It must be that someone was taking care of this field. One of the subordinates suggested the leader try it. Noting the flavor was quite good, a person came forward to report that she had investigated this area. She saw numerous houses with strange architecture amid the fields. It's not really a village, it's more of a farm. The girl leader hypothesized, guessing it was a noble's house hoarding delicious produce for themselves. There could also be many treasures inside. She declared that they couldn't let this golden opportunity slip away inside the house. Balin, who usually helps everyone, was feeling downhearted since the arrival of the three merfolk. Her workload had decreased significantly, leaving her with more free time. Belina couldn't accept becoming idle and useless. She inwardly wished the saint would delegate more tasks to her soon. As Lena stepped outside, she noticed Caden working on pottery just after she began helping. Orbo and a group of O's arrived with a band of thieves in tow. Orbo explained that they had caught the thieves attempting to intrude on the farm. Belina remarked that goblins are a type of demon, but historically they had diverged into many distinct types. They preferred to avoid humans and demons, choosing to hide in the forest instead. Belina had often heard about goblin raiders who indiscriminately plundered without regard to race, earning the disdain of both demons and humans. Keen laughed loudly, asking if everyone was surprised to find a farm in these fields. The girl leader asked exactly where they were and who he was. Belina stepped in to inform them that the man before them was the Saint Caden. The goblins assumed Caden was human. The leader asked incredulously if the people with him were demons, not only that they were also powerful mutants who could speak Vil and PL. Learning that someone was stealing tomatoes, quickly came to assess the situation. According to them, stealing tomatoes was a serious crime. Caden allows them to atone for their sins right here. Vil, enraged, scolds the boy for always being so naive. Have you forgotten that they are the ones who stole the tomatoes? He exclaims. Bina steps up, urging him not to underestimate the goblins. They might be chivalrous thieves, but that doesn't change the fact that they are wanted criminals in both kingdoms. PL calmly states, isn't our farm always as full of notorious criminals? Vil then remembers that he himself is a genius destined to devastate the world. He loudly warns the goblins that if they dare to flee into the forest, this dragon will burn everything. The ashes. Caden pulls Vil back, forbidding him from threatening the newcomers. A thief whispers to their leader that perhaps Caden has tamed the dragon. The thieves grow even more fearful upon hearing that this place is teeming with infamous criminals. The leader whispers that everything is terrible. They must find a way to escape. Bina whispers back, asking why these criminals would allow a demon to pass. The demon king will decide their fate. She explains, however, they are aware that the current demon king despises the unnecessary killing. Regardless, they are still wanted criminals, but the demon king is currently too busy with other matters. Eventually, Kin suggests a solution for them to work here until the demon king is available. Additionally, Kigan assigns Vil the task of supervising them. The thieves whisper, questioning if that dragon can really supervise. If so, they have no choice but to obey whatever the dragon commands. Suddenly, Caden laughs loudly, asking the three if they'd like some tea. Sitting down at the tea table, Kaidan says that before they start working here, he wants to know what they are good at. PL, noticing their silence, asks how they are with farm work. Can you weed and harvest? The thief shouts back, thinking that just because they live in the forest they would understand farming. Belina informs everyone that goblins have no customs related to farming. They are typically a race that just gathers fruits and herbs for food. For goblins, nature is something that exists freely, not a place where they work to improve the quality of their lives, and for various reasons they find farming incredibly challenging. PL thinks that perhaps there are a tribe not as developed as humans. Vil wants again infuriated, questions why the criminals are so picky. During the conversation, a goblin notices the teacup and asks why it isn't glaze. Caden honestly replies because he doesn't know. Then Caden has an idea and asks if she can use a kiln. The thief informs him that she can make pottery and glaze it. Moreover, they can also create various glassware items. PL is thrilled because she regularly concocts medicines and needs containers for them. Kagan once again assigns the goblin the task of teaching everyone what they do not know. The hunting trip today includes one of the three newcomers, a goblin. She uses a bow and arrow to catch wild boar more easily, significantly reducing the hunting time. As everyone returns, they find that the Demon King has come looking for them before they can even greet him. Ziggin is attacked from behind by a girl. The girl asks the Demon King why he has brought her to such a place. Does he intend to abandon her here? Caden, glancing at Astero, whispers that perhaps it would be better to stop their fight, or Kubo is ordered to restrain the girl. Glacier loudly protests, refusing to be captured by an inferior. Orizon apologizes to Kedin for the chaos. Bolina and Bimi come out to greet the Demon King, then turn to ask Glacia why she is here too. Ziggin takes this opportunity to discuss some matters with Caden. First, Ziggin introduces Glacia as a member of the Sacred for another matter that brings on here is his permission to lure a rebellion that attempted to take his place, thanks to that the Demon Sea could eliminate them except for one. She holds the highest position among the rebels and is the main instigator. Ultimately, she started the uprising to overthrow Zahn and become the next ruler. PL asks how Ziggin intends to deal with her. Ziggin continues saying that he has observed Glaz's boldness and finds it commendable. Others tried to overthrow him with dirty tricks, but Glacia chose to challenge Zahn, directly forcing him to defeat her. The Demon King, however, does not want to do that. PL says the truth will be very difficult for them to intervene, and Astaroth is compelled to reveal the truth that Glaza loves the Demon King. Zig, on the other hand, doesn't intend to act on it. He only acknowledges Glacia as his wife. Moreover, if he truly marries Glacia, she would be punished by the divine blessings. Hearing this, Glacia scream out, insisting that she be killed instead. Zig sorrowfully states that he must make an unfavorable decision concerning someone as important as Astero too. Everyone's surprised. Astero calmly says she understands her role as the queen, and that it is inevitable. Asav is well aware of Glass's strong military potential. The demon realm cannot afford to lose someone like her. Caden, feeling headache, wonders what he should do next. The Immortal King listens to their entire story before making his appearance. Vil, drawn by the noise of the crowd, comes to see what is happening. As he witnesses the two figures, Glacia, Strez freed from her binding, she blocks Zahn's path, urging him to leave everything to her and just escape. Zahn admits that the demon realm truly needs someone like her. Glacier yells back, questioning how he could say those words. At this moment, Belina speaks up, asking her to calm down, reminding her that the undead king is their friendly neighbor. The Immortal King, hearing himself mentioned, asks if it would be bothersome to speak a few words because the vows taken earlier were extremely important. He does not allow the Demon King to have a concubine. Ultimately, just as Hayes, the king of the underworld, has only one wife, he never accepts adultery. Each deity has their own way of controlling their boundaries, but for Hayes, it's his wife. That's why infidelity is not tolerated. Thus, he forces those who receive his blessings to love only one person. Zahn whispers an apology, acknowledging his affection for Glacia, but unable to do otherwise. Glacia shouts that she is unworthy and does not regret being beheaded. To resolve the issue once more, the Immortal King calls forth the underworld deity. Hayes says he has only heard a bit, but it already seems sacrilegious. It hasn't even been a year since his blessing, and this Demon King has already violated the sacred law. Caden realizes Hayes is furious. Glacia loudly implores Hayes to listen to her. Everything has stemmed from her. From the beginning, Ziggin did everything to reject her advances. Therefore, if there must be a punishment, she insists it should fall upon her. At this moment, Astaroth speaks up, emphasizing that in the conflict with humanity, Glacia is crucial to the demon tribe. The matter of having a consort this time is also a matter of survival for the entire demon race. Caden sees that he is conflicted while everyone is still confused. The Immortal King continues by summoning Hayes' wife. She expresses pride in being so loved by her husband. However, she admits that his seriousness and inflexibility are weaknesses, but as a wife, she cannot deny her husband's wishes, as his blessing is like an eternal promise. Breaking it requires a different balance. She looks at Caden and asks if he is a child of the gods, someone outside their boundaries who has received something special from Hephaestus. She smiles, intrigued, saying if possible she would grant him an Exception Ha's wife mentions the sacred sword created by her husband. Hearing this, the demon, Cain, pulls out a sacred sword from within. Khan immediately recognizes it as similar to his own sword. Zahn turns to ask Astral and Glacia if they brought their swords. Bulk simultaneously produced two broken swords. They kept them as a display of loyalty to the demon realm. Caden doesn't understand what this all means. Zahn explains that they possess 5 sacred swords made by the underworld god. Each tribe within the demon realm was to hold one. Then in the battle for the demon throne, his ancestors gathered all and destroyed them. Kagan puzzled wonders why they created so many swords in the first place if it only led to conflict. Hay's wife explains that there was a reason for everything. Long ago, the gods divided territories and ruled their respective areas. However, Zeus became greedy, and he brought his people into Ha's territory. The immortal Cain knew this was the territory of current humanity, humans who were invaders from heaven. A war ensued, and to aid his people, Hayes created those swords. Caden asks her why there are 7 swords. Questioning it's really necessary to fight like this, she explains that the 7 swords are actually meant to become one. Ziggin continues, believing Kin already knows that each sword possesses its own soul. A sacred sword becomes stronger through battle. This means the 7 swords will destroy each other and absorb the others, and the last one standing will be the strongest sword of power capable of destroying humanity. And, of course, the true sacred sword has yet to appear. Hay's wife speaks again, saying she has something to say. With Caven's current power, the task of merging all the swords with his hands is possible. She asks if he agrees to do this. The goblins cheer joyously, as this could prevent the war between the human and demon realms. If true, their lives would become much easier. Hay's wife offers a condition. If this can be done, she will change the original blessing given to the demon king. Caden looks at his hands, wondering if he really must create a sword that could destroy humanity. Seeing Caden's expression, she confirms her suspicion that even though he is from another world, he is still concerned about annihilating humans. Caden loudly states that it is not right for a god to do this. She impatiently asks if he still sides with humans. Caden whispers not exactly. A creative god like Cestus, he thinks, did not give him this power to perform such an act, but if he can control the situation, he will fix it. Caden contemplates that with his hands he could create a sword capable of destroying humanity, allowing the demon king to marry and end the war between humans and demons. However, he still does not want to use the power of Hephaestus for this. Zahn understands Caden's concerns. He tells him not to worry. A true sacred sword created by him will never be a tool for destroying humanity. As a demon king, he promises he won't do that. PL laughs loudly, asking if he has a plan. Then Ziggin outlines that perhaps the true sacred sword will be created by a saint. He believes they can break the sacred barrier around the castle created by Zeus. Everyone cheers, saying it's fantastic, because that barrier has prevented demons from entering. Ziggin, standing before the god of the underworld, vows to personally dismantle humanity's political systems. Hayes is satisfied, noting that it's a tribe that worships Zeus, a family that considers themselves a superior race. If they are defeated, it would mean the downfall of all humanity. Humans would then only be regarded as demons. Hayes' wife blesses the demon king with the right to marry. Hades also gives Caden a medallion of approval. He doesn't mean it is compensation, but merely as a blessing, so that all the fruits on this land will grow better, and with that the couple disappears. Everyone is called to unite and prepare for the demon king's battle. The sacred sword is quickly completed by Caden. Ziggin also receives information from the goblins that they will enter the castle through the mountains. This will also help minimize human casualties. Ziggin once again thanks Caden, unsure how to fully express his gratitude. Astero says that meeting him has been to their greatest fortune. They promise to return soon with news of victory. Caden laughs, telling them they are welcome anytime before they leave. Bait me hands over a magical cloth to Asav and Glossa. It will protect them from enemy attacks, wishing them safety. Glacia promises to protect the demon king and Astero by all means. They stay briefly to enjoy a meal prepared by Caden before heading into battle. Meanwhile, the human tribes have yet to find any information about Saint Caden. The king incessantly berates them as a weak group. Suddenly, someone rushes in to inform the king of urgent news. They have received word that the demon king is leading a large army to invade their country. and the invasion is underway. The king panics, ordering the immediate mobilization of troops. However, since he had previously ordered them disbanded to search for St. Kitten, regrouping is now impossible. The king then thinks of ordering the church to deploy a new barrier, but ironically, since it had been established thousands of years ago, they had long forgotten how. Caden realizes that he has been in this world for quite some time now. He was summoned to this world by the king of the human race, and then met PL after that. There were the extraordinary humans. He built houses, plowed fields, and made friends. Before he knew it, he had become an integral part of this world thanks to the mere people he managed to create. Spices and high-end goods. Additionally, the goblins were producing glassware. Just yesterday, he even made a Western-style toilet himself. He believes that when the Demon King returns, he will be quite surprised. Caden worries whether their plan will work out. If it does, he suspects that from now on it will be the era of the Demon King. Vil discovers Caden feeding the wolves rice and approaches to look into the bowl, asking, "Is that rice?" Kagan has to scold her for being too greedy. Vil remembers something and tells him that the dungeon on the mountain has been strange recently, with types of fruits and plants growing that she has never seen before. Caden proudly says that the environment in Vil's dungeon varies with each level, therefore he thinks it could be used to grow many different types of plants. He is also considering experimenting with some demonic flowers. Caden suggests to Vil that they call it the project to transform Vil's dungeon into a garden. Vil face palms, asking what exactly her dungeon is. Then V looks around the dungeon filled with fruits, asking if they are edible. Are they tasty? Caden assures her that all the fruits listed it will grow, however they need to be preserved so that everyone can enjoy them together. First they need to harvest and count them. Kin has to shout loudly, telling Vil to stop eating. He will face difficulties if he does not know the yield, therefore she is not allowed to eat without permission. According to reports from Ori and his allies, they discovered that Vil had a stomach ache from eating too many prawns. The persimmons were incredibly astringent and should not be eaten raw without proper preparation. Cin can only continuously complain about Vil's gluttony, but it is thanks to Vil that he has cooked many more dishes. Not long after, Ziggin appears at Caden's house with a girl. The girl introduces herself as Princess Tattle, the only daughter of the kin of the human race, a noble breed, and from today onwards Kitten will have the honor of caring for a princess like her. Kin calls over Ziggin to ask what's going on with the Demon King. Could it be that the plan has failed? Ziggin replies that the politics of the human world fell apart after the king's death, devastating the kingdom. Princess Tazzle loudly demands to know what the two are whispering about in front of her. PL can't stand it anymore and steps forward to warn Tazzle that she's just another peasant to them, still lost in her delusions. Tazzle says, as a noble, she will graciously forgive their disrespect. She proudly declares herself a princess unmatched in humanity, thus everyone should serve her. PL slaps Tell hard across the face, telling her to shut up. What's to be proud of as a princess of a decaying nation? The human kingdom has been destroyed, and without a country, she's just a commoner. Understand? Caden continues talking to the Demon King, asking if he intends to leave the girl here. The truth is Tazzle has nowhere else to go, even though the king was killed. The kingdom has yet to be conquered, and the old regime still exists. The remnants of the old dynasty might lurk for some time, and it would be very dangerous if they knew of Tal's location. Anyone could become king by marrying the princess. PL, standing by, realizes the issue and scolds Tazzle, saying that she would have been dead if not for the Demon King's mercy. This is the only place she can stay if she's still not satisfied. The only other place is hell. At this point, Tazzle seems to become a different person, admitting that all the mistakes were hers. PL asks the Demon King why he prioritizes this girl's life over other demons. Zahn admits he's somewhat embarrassed. He had promised the human caning he had vowed his own life in exchange for the safety of his people. PL turns to Tazzle with no sympathy, warning her that she must work to eat. Caden suggests that since the girl has likely never done any hard labor, she will start by overseeing the crop inspections. Tazzle shouts out that it's too much, demanding another task. PL, standing behind her, hits her on the head, disallowing any complaints. From then on, the girl recognizes her place, though she's reluctant to work. During a break at noon, she tells Caden that she still has hope and must try the hope in her heart is that St. Kitten will save humanity. Tazel tells him that her father also had great expectations of the saint to rescue humanity. She believes that if the saint knew humanity was in danger, he would intervene and vanquish the demons. Kitten thinks to himself that it would be bad if Tazel found out he was the person she was waiting for. He decides to quickly go back and instruct everyone about this. After finishing her garden chores, Tazel looks like she's about to cry, feeling like her back is about to break. She starts to look around and assess her surroundings. She's never seen such structures before. The food is exotic and the beds are comfortable. Moreover, Tazel thinks that while this place belongs to the demon realm, aside from having to work, it's practically paradise. Meanwhile, Ziggin once again asks the immortal king to summon Hayes. He wonders if it's okay to keep calling on gods like this. Understanding Zahn's thoughts, the immortal king lets them know that this time he came of his own volition. Hayes commends the undead king for summoning him. According to prophecy, he turns to the demon king, asking if it seems he has already eradicated Zeus's descendants. Ziggin is surprised that Hayes already knows truly a god, since Ziggin has cleared away Zeus's nuance. From today onwards, he is entitled to call himself the greatest demon king of all time. Arowana from the sea also comes up to see Hayes. He mentions that his father told him the demon tribe had ended the land disputes. Arowana also wishes to meet and celebrate with the demon king. He humbly says that the demon king is not much older than him, but has already achieved great things, including potentially ending the human war. Zahn responds that Prince Arowana is a person of character and great ability, fit to be a leader and as a commander of a neighboring kingdom. Zahn thinks Arowana is entirely trustworthy to lead the Merfolk kingdom. The immortal king whispers that perhaps this world will now have peace for a while. Hayes thinks they should celebrate this occasion. Kitten takes on the task of preparing a gift for the god. Soon after, Kitten presents a dish of mixed rice with bamboo shoots. He thinks it would be perfect to use something that carries the aura of blossoming spring. After trying the rice, Hayes declares that from now on this bamboo mixed rice will be a delicacy of the gods. Vil, attracted by the smell of the food, comes over and asks Hayes if he intends to steal of her food. Hayes responds that he just wants to declare the mixed rice as a divine dish and to commend it. Caden is somehow thrilled that a god has praised him. Vil suggests that if they're going to have a party, they should include some beer. After tasting the beer, Hayes declares it the drink of the gods. The immortal king informs Caden that his strength and energy will be fully restored if he consumes the god praise food. Hayes also wants to share with the sea god and his wife, so he asks the immortal king to call them. Thus a divine feast begins. Taste runs out from the house, trying to stop everyone. Arowana asks who the girl is. Zahn informs them that she is the princess of the human kingdom brought here for her safety. Tazel asks if the gods of earth and sea are here, then why isn't the god of humanity? She says if she could meet Zeus, she would let him know the plight of humanity, and she is sure that humanity would be saved. Tazel continues to question why the most important person isn't here. Hayes and the sea god couple each say it's because he is selfish and thinks he is special. If Zeus knew about this place, he would take it for himself. Tazel, who had always thought of Zeus as a god everyone admired, realizes that everyone actually dislikes him. She angrily walks away after the three gods leave. Everyone's abilities improve. PL suddenly has a wealth of ideas for making medicines. Lampy feels his fatigue vanish, replaced by a surge of strength. Even Bolina wants to create countless outfits. Caden laughs loudly, saying if everyone's life is granted happiness, he feels happy himself. Tazel, hiding in a field, continuously curses the god Zeus. Now she has nothing left to look forward to but to wait for Saint Caden. Caden approaches her and asks if she would like to own a part of the land. Anything grown on the farm belongs to everyone, but whatever is grown in this particular area will belong only to her. Kiden believes the best way to educate a child is through agriculture. Tazel happily says she wants to plant hemp beans. Standing in the middle of the land, she declares that she will recreate humanity and lead it as its princess. Gobukichi, who is responsible for the farm worker, encounters a mystery and seeks out Caden. He explains that while they were working in the morning, they planned to because the grass was growing too quickly due to the super fertilizer fast Growing grass wasn't a problem for him, but as they were about to start working, they noticed the adjacent field had been completely cleared of grass, which was now piled up next to the field. Gobukichi is terrified, not knowing who did this. He couldn't understand, so he looked for others to ask, but no one knew. The first person Kid thinks of is Tazel. Tell denies it's, saying she has always prioritized her own field. Kaden continues to ponder before Kichi and his team started. Had someone else done the work for them? He wonders if it was a kind-hearted thief who weeded while planning to steal. Gobukichi denies it, saying there were no traces of a thief. As the owner of the farm, Kiden takes it upon himself to s this mystery. By hiding, Kiden believes the culprit will act again. At night, everyone watches as something starts emerging from the ground. When their identities are revealed, the earth spirits fly up in front of them. The spirits say they are acquaintances of the god Haze. They are the spirits of nature tasked with maintaining its health. Normally, these spirits are covered by energy and cannot be seen or touched, but now they can be seen and touched thanks to the blessing of the underworld god. After gaining strength from the underworld god, all spirits have become stronger, and thanks to Kaden opening up this place, many creatures have been able to thrive. That is why the earth spirits wanted to thank Kin. Being spirits, they did not want to be discovered. However, now that they've been revealed, they directly request a task. Tazel joyfully tells the earth spirits to come and take care of her. PL shouts at her to be quiet, reminding her that she is the one who needs to serve. Gobukichi speaks up, suggesting that since this is the work of god goblins, perhaps they could take on the job instead. Tazel, still sulky, questions why they would work if not to serve her. After some thought, Kaden decides to assign the earth spirits the task of looking after the house. Baitme asks if this means her workload will be reduced. Kaden replies that is why he wants her to help look after the children. Bolina, admiring the adorable spirits, asks Kaden if she could make clothes for them. Kevin laughs, noting that it seems everyone has found their role. Next on Kian's agenda is building a bad house. He patiently explains to PL that it is a place for cleaning oneself. Kaden thanks everyone, acknowledging that he could not have done it without their help. In heaven, Hermes informs Zeus that the human kingdom has been defeated. Originally, that area was part of Ha's domain, and humans were the invaders. Hermes believes that Zeus once said the victor takes all. He questions why he would say that. Hermes informs him that the demons didn't take human lives, they were merely ruled by demons. Zeus laughs loudly, commenting how kindly and benevolent indeed Ha's creations. He is furious to be just learning about this and wonders what those people are thinking, calling them fools. Even if humanity was to lose, shouldn't they have fought to the end? Hermes responds that what they really need now is help. Isn't it? Zeus still feels the situation is quite abrupt, wondering if Hades helped the demons. He concludes that Hades must have played dirty. Hermes reminds him that if he starts a war based on unfounded suspicions, everyone will oppose him. Moreover, Zeus no longer has a good reputation. Known would agree to fight for him anyway. The guardian god of heaven, Hermes leaves in anger. Hermes, of course, knows why humans lost to demons. However, if her foolish father ever learned of this, it would be terrible, so she had to ensure the gods' safety. All the gods only wished for the war to end quickly, as peace was paramount. After his son left, Zeus still believed he was the strongest, that everything had to be under his control. Nothing in the world could oppose him. Zeus thought that if he couldn't control something, he would destroy it. He laughed loudly, remembering his secret weapon in Kid's garden. Tazel incessantly pleads for him to let her plant fava beans. While they were planting together, an earthquake occurred. Kaden wondered if this place also had earthquakes. Something fell right into Tell's field. She screamed that her field was now ruined by a hole. Kaden didn't know what was happening either. Judging by its size, they could only guess it was a giant creature. A girl rose from the field, continuously reciting codes. Kaden wondered why she kept mumbling like that. Soon after, the girl again dove head first in a Tazel field. Ken quickly checked her. Her breathing was very weak, and her body temperature was also very low, and took her inside, and Gara came to examine her. Gar said her symptoms were very different from anything she learned. Moreover, she couldn't determine the girl's race with the observed characteristics. She wasn't human, demon, or merfolk. PL commented that without knowing her race, it was difficult to treat her. Gar suggested that the only solution at the Moment was nutrient infusion after being fed by Gobu Kichi. The girl gradually regained consciousness. She began mumbling again about checking her body functions, fully recovered, unable to restore priority DEA. She suggested updating with the latest information. The girl knelt before Kaden, saying she was a weapon created by a god from heaven, and since she get lost Omaya, she would recognize Kaden as her new master. She now awaited orders to destroy the enemy. Kaden was nearly in tears, pleading with her not to say such frightening things. Kaden tried asking the girl several questions, but she couldn't answer because her data was lost, having no other choice. They called for the immortal king. He observed her for a while and said that even after living 1,000 years, he had never seen anything like this. PL was surprised that even the undead god didn't know what to do, and they were at loss. The immortal king once again summoned the god Hades on his own initiative. Hades asked Kaden what was the matter, or if he had prepared another delicious dish for him to enjoy. Kaden replied that today he just wanted to ask him one thing. Hayes angrily asked why he hoped Kaden hadn't called him just for this. If that was the case, he would definitely have to punish him. Kaden hesitantly asked if he knew anything about the girl. Hayes looked at the girl and then exclaimed that this was serious. He commended Kaden for doing well and informing him about this matter. The girl is actually a warrior sent by Zeus to control the earth, which is a terrible thing. This creature is one of Zeus's masterpieces. Its capabilities surpass any living being on earth. With that power, it could turn the earth into a sea of fire. Every creature on earth would be mercilessly killed. Khan's current task is to control her, because if just one of them gains enough strength, this world will be destroyed.